The topic is solving initial value problems by separation of variables. So let's do this example. Find an explicit solution of the initial value problem x squared dy dx is equal y minus xy, and then y of -1 is equal -1. Alright, so first we do is we want to separate the x's and dx's and y and dy's. So before we can do that, if you notice, you want to factor the y. So if I do that, x squared dy dx, if I factor the y, I'll have y factor of 1 minus x. So I'm separating, see, the y's and the x's already. Now, again, you can always move things diagonally. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep dy on the left side. So I'm going to move this, the y, diagonally. So this will be dy still there, and then y is moving that way. 1 minus x, I'm going to keep it same place. I'm going to move dx diagonally this way, so dx is going to go here. And then x squared, I can move it diagonally this way, so x squared is going to go here. See, I have the x's and the dx on one side, the y's and the dy on one side, then I can integrate both sides. Right? Now, how do I integrate this one? The left side is pretty easy. It's ln of absolute value of y. The right side, I have to separate them. 1 over x squared, which is x negative 2, minus x over x squared is 1 over x dx. Now, ln of absolute value of y will be equal x negative 2 plus 1 is x negative 1 over negative 1 minus integral of 1 over x is going to be ln of absolute value of x plus some constant. Let me rewrite this. ln absolute value of y is equal to -1 over x minus ln of absolute value of x plus c. Every time you have two ln's, if you want to have one ln, you probably want to move it to the other side. So let's do that. So ln of y plus ln of absolute value of x is equal to -1 over x plus c. Now this is going to be ln of absolute value of x times y is equal to -1 over x plus c. Right? I'm using the properties of logarithm here. Now take e of the left side is equal to e of the right side. Now e ln of something will be that thing, right? I'm using e ln of z is equal to z, right? So absolute value xy, that's my z. And then here I have to use the product. I'm using, how do I write it? If you do am times an, it's equal am plus n, but I'm going backwards. So this will be e -1 over x times e over c, e to the c, right? Now this means that absolute value of xy is equal some constant. Well, let's do it more. This would be ec e -1 over x, right? Now using absolute value, solving absolute value means xy is equal minus or plus, right? ec e -1 over x. Now I can call all this just some constant c, e -1 over x, and my constant happens to be minus or plus ec, and I'll try to find the c. How do I try to find the c? Just use the initial condition. Initial condition says when x is equal to -1, y is also equal to -1. So let's plug that in. -1 times 1 times -1, is equal to ce -1 over -1. This means that 1 is equal C times E, am I right? Which means C is equal 1 over E, which means is equal E negative 1. Now I'm going to plug it back in here. So xy is equal E negative 1 times E negative 1 over x. I mean, you can write this nicely as xy equal E. I'm just going to add them up, so that we minus 1 over x. And solving for y, you'll get E negative 1 minus 1 over x over x. That would be the solution. Again, so that's it. But again, I'm going to show you this. I did it in the previous example. What if you want to find a constant here using the absolute value? Let's do it just to make sure you guys got this right. So I'm going to rewrite that on the back. Absolute value of xy, absolute value of xy is equal EC times what? E negative 1 over x. Alright, so let's find this constant by using the initial condition. Initial condition is what? X equal negative 1, x equal negative 1, y equal negative 1. That's the initial condition. So let's plug that in. If you plug negative 1 for x, negative 1 for y, this is going to give you EC, or you can call it C, times E negative 1, and then x is negative 1. Absolute value of 1 is 1. And then E to the 1 is just E. So therefore, EC is equal 1 over E, right? Now we can plug it back in here. Now therefore, absolute value of xy is equal 1 over E, or E negative 1, doesn't matter, times E negative 1 over x. So absolute value of xy is equal E negative 1 minus 1 over x. Now what does that mean? That means to solve for absolute value that xy is equal minus or plus, right? E negative 1 minus 1 over x. Let me write it separately. xy is equal negative E minus 1 over x, or xy is equal E negative 1 minus 1 over x. Now I have to pick one of them. So how do I know which one is the solution, this one or that one? So let's use initial condition. See which one will work. When x is equal negative 1, y has to be negative 1. So plug negative 1 for both x and y. Now this is going to be 1 equal minus E. What is that? Yes, makes sense. Negative 1 plus 1, which is 0. So 1 equal 1. See, this will work. So that's our solution right here. But you can check the other one. The other equation shouldn't work. So let's do it. Negative 1 times, well, hold on. This doesn't work. See, negative 1. This one doesn't work, right? So negative, this is 1. So this has to work. Negative 1 times negative 1 is equal E, negative 1 minus 1. Plug in negative 1 for x, negative 1 for y. This is going to give us 1 equal E to the 0, 1 equal 1. This should work. So, sorry, this is the answer. This is not the answer. So now we can finish it. So y will be equal E negative 1 minus 1 over x divided by x, and that's the same thing we got earlier. So it doesn't matter where you plug in, just you have to be careful when you do it, and you still got the absolute value. You're still gonna do more work here. So that's it for this example.